I told you guys, our web said this a few weeks ago, and I agreed with it. Brett Yormark seems like he's poison pilling the Big Ten and the SEC by introducing the 5+11 playoff plan. You may have scoffed, you may have laughed. It sure looks like it's working right now with the latest report that we have to talk about today. It may have saved a chance for the Big 12 to actually play Big 10 and SEC schools in the non-con. It's given the Big 12 a best of both worlds playoff situation with what it looks like the playoff format is heading toward. And most importantly, it's got the Big Ten and the SEC really snippy with each other. It has broken up the bromance that was blossoming between the two conferences, which was a major threat to everybody that's not in the Big Ten or the SEC. So frankly, there are probably some people that should be thanking Brett Yormark and Jim Phillips, for that matter, for jumping right on board with this. I like this. It's kind of, there was the meme. I reference memes a lot here, but there's the meme of the little girl standing outside the house that's on fire, and she kind of has like a sly little smile. I feel like that's where Brett Yormark is at right now. I feel like that's him. You're like, hey, look what's happening here. Okay. So it has been reported, multiple times over, Big 12 and ACC came up with the 5+11 playoff format, basically to just keep from getting steamrolled with the 4-4-2-2 plan that was going to give 4 auto bids to the Big 10 and the SEC, and then 2 apiece for the Big 12 and the ACC. And the SEC mostly latched on to that, particularly the coaches. Seemed like SEC admins were on board with the idea of 4-4-2-2 because they could do the scheduling agreement with the Big Ten. They could also get those playing games at the end of the year, which means they would make more money. But the coaches were like, hey, that seems like a lot to have to do a playing game there. We would dominate the more at-large bids that there are. Let's do that. The Big Ten's hated the idea from the get-go. They do not like it at all. And it's really turned these two leagues against each other. The reporting back and forth over the last month and a half since the SEC really started to jump on board with this Yormark and Phillips supported idea has been that, man, the Big Ten seems upset. If you go look at Big Ten Twitter right now, Big Ten Twitter seems upset. You are seeing a lot more sniping back and forth now between SEC and Big Ten. Now, the Big 12 has done some of that as well. Brett Yormark kind of, we'll say, took a veiled shot at Tony Petitti at Big 12 Media Days at his press conference last week when he said, look, we're not trying to be professional sports. We don't need to be professional sports. And Tony Petitti is the guy that seems to most embody that sort of attitude right now. But it has set up an environment where there's no progress really being made on this. And everybody now seems resigned to the fact that we're going to go into 2026 with a 12-team playoff instead of a 16-team playoff. And I know you might roll your eyes a little bit and be like, well, first of all, John, what's the news with this? I'm getting to that. But second of all, how big of a deal is that really? I mean, it was a foregone conclusion for months and months and months that it was going to be 4 auto bids. This was going to come through. It's just a matter of time. I mean, that was the way everybody had positioned it and acted about it. If you would have told John 4 to 6 months ago, hey, you're going to get a 12-team playoff in 26, and who the hell knows beyond, it could stay there, I would have said, no way, you're crazy. Obviously, everybody's getting steamrolled here by the Big Ten and the SEC, but that has not happened. And the latest report comes from Brett McMurphy of On3, who says the Big Ten will not back off its preferred college football playoff format, guaranteeing the league 4 automatic qualifiers unless the SEC decides to add a 9th conference game, sources told On3. Quote, this is a quote from the source, quote, there's no way Tony moves off 4 AQs, that being Tony Petitti, the commissioner of the Big Ten. So this is in no way shocking news. I mean, this is really just a more firm affirmation of everything we've seen reported lately and the way the Big Ten has publicly positioned itself. But this is definitely the most definitive way we've seen it stated in a public report. And it's big time confirmation that we know how the Big Ten feels about this, and they're digging their heels in. They're not going to just roll over for the SEC because now you've introduced this. Look, the Big Ten and the SEC have kind of been working together for a while because they're the power brokers. They hold all the cards and everything, both figuratively and literally in the language of the College Football Playoff Memorandum of Understanding. They hold all the cards. They had started meeting together. It became a bromance. They're working together. Hey, we need to shape the future of college athletics. We got to do this ourselves. But these are also two massive conferences with massive egos and lots of different massive egos within those conferences that all have to be massaged. And if you all of a sudden aren't getting what you want and you're used to getting basically everything you want, which both of these leagues are right now, you're not going to be too thrilled with whatever the resistance is. And yes, Big 12 ACC may have introduced this, but the real resistance is the SEC, because they are the other piece of this that can actually make a difference in the future, like actually hold decision-making power in the future over this. So now the Big Ten's ego is bruised. The Big Ten is like, wait, hold up, no. Now, they would tell you this is all like sound reason decision-making for practical purposes, but make no mistake, a big part of this is like ego too, and like symbolism of like, we can't let ourselves get pushed around by the SEC. We can't do that. We fancy ourselves the big bully. We've won the last 2 national championships. That's us. So why should we be sitting around here bowing down to the SEC? We've got a monster league. We've got the biggest league out there. We are sea to shining sea with our schools. Why do we need to bow down to the SEC over anything? You've been able to play these two powerful egos against each other if you are Yormark by introducing this playoff format. I cannot understate how we'll see what it means in the end. You know, maybe they rally, maybe they find some way to, but together they were a powerful force, especially when they were working together. And if they're on the same page, I mean, good luck trying to do anything to stop them. But you've now gotten them off the same page. And who knows how far those issues will lead? Who knows how far things can crack and splinter now that this is happening? And I think it's great for everybody else involved. You do not want them working together, especially at a time when Cody Campbell is kind of circling like a shark in the water here. I can introduce some ideas that are going to be better for everybody involved in college athletics instead of just 2 conferences. I can save Olympic sports. I can save women's sports. I can do some. I've got the president's ear. Congress is starting to worry about this. All of these things that can be changing at this time with so much that's not stable and so much that could change. You don't want the Big Ten and SEC in total lockstep together. Now, the other part of this obviously is, will the SEC move to a 9-game conference schedule? The Big Ten, I think would say, okay, fine. If you move to a 9-game conference schedule, we'll do 5 plus 11. But they don't want to be at a competitive disadvantage in their eyes with the SEC only playing 8 conference games, having that extra game in November where they play directional FCS state, and everybody across the league basically does that. They get a little bit of a break. And the Big Ten's like, hey, that's BS. The SEC, meanwhile, turns around and says, yeah, you get a lot of those breaks throughout the year. They're called Purdue, and most years except last year, Indiana and Northwestern, at Nebraska for the last decade. You guys get a lot of those weeks. We don't have those in the SEC. So this is the fight, right? This is the fight. But the SEC does not want to go to 9 games unless they get assurances on what the at-large selection process is going to be like in the college football playoff. Because they think if they go to 9 games, it's an extra tough game. More teams will lose. They get less at-large bids. Like, this is the standstill, and it doesn't seem like anything is moving. Doesn't seem like anything is moving. And one other thing that I think is huge about this, what's brilliant about this for Yormark, I mentioned, obviously, the fact that you've now got these 2 fighting, but also if they're fighting, it means they're not joining up for a scheduling agreement. And that ties back into SEC's not going to 9 conference games. They're not having 4 auto bids where then they can schedule as many tough Texas, Ohio State type of non-conference games as they would like to, with no fear of missing out on playoff bids. If that were going to happen, suddenly the SEC has 1 less non-con spot, and then really 2 less because they'll have a scheduling agreement with the Big Ten and play 1 game against a Big Ten school every year, meaning less opportunities for the Big 12 and the ACC to play those schools. Well, now that's out the window. They haven't agreed on the 4 auto bids. They're not agreeing at all. A lot of the disagreement surrounds strength of schedule. They're going to be less apt to schedule each other. So now you've got more of an in. Joey McGuire stood up at Big 12 Media Days and said, hey, get us a home and home with LSU. You've got more of an opportunity to do that. Okay? You've got more of an opportunity to do that. I mean, Hell, Big Ten schools right now look like they're just running from the hills of any competition in non-con. Indiana just backed out of a game with Virginia at the same time scheduling Kennesaw State. Like that's what's going on in the Big Ten right now. So both of those things are very advantageous for the Big 12. Very advantageous. Now, another part of this report, as I keep reading, with the Big Ten continuing to support the 4AQ format and with the SEC unlikely to add a ninth conference game, the 12-team playoff will likely continue for the 2026 season. Quote, we're staying at 12 teams in 2026 unless something moves, a source says. Greg Sankey publicly at big SEC Media Days, rather on Monday, said we currently have a 12-team playoff with 5 conference champions. That could stay if we can't agree. I think there's this notion that there has to be this magic moment and something has to happen with expansion. Yeah, I mean, I feel like that's a little bit like the hot dog guy, Tim Robinson looking around like, well, we're all trying to find the guy who did this. I mean, it's been the SEC and Big Ten pushing 16-team expansion thing. Although, in fairness to Sankey, the Big Ten was more of the driving force behind that. So they're the ones that kind of gave everybody that idea, but he is right. You can just continue on with a 12-team playoff, which is a best of both worlds scenario for the Big 12. The longer the playoff stays at 12 teams the way it currently is, the more the Big 12 wins. Because what was the whole deal here? The Big 12 didn't want to sign up for 4-4-2-2 because you are codifying, you are solidifying that you are half the league of the SEC and Big 10. And there's no turning back from that. You will never be able to negotiate yourself out of that. Once you do it, toothpaste is out of the tube, you're done. Didn't want to do that. But you also, the problem with 5+11 is you're then opening up more at-large bids that will predominantly be gobbled up by the SEC and Big Ten, and you fall further behind in terms of playoff participants. You're not dealing with that either if it's staying at 12. It's 5+7 then instead of 5+11. You're getting less lapped by the SEC and Big Ten while still not having to sign on the dotted line that you are half the conference of those two. That's a win-win, my friends. That's basically the best scenario that the Big 12 could hope for here, a best of both worlds. And that is good negotiating. Now, will it stay that way beyond 2026? We shall see. But you have now put a real fly in the ointment, caused a lot of disagreement between the Big 10 and the SEC. They are nowhere near on the same page at the moment, and you're buying time right now, kicking this can down the road where the current playoff format, like, you're fine. You're fine. Obviously, you still got to fight to get more respect. BYU should have absolutely been there in the at-large discussion last year. You got to fight to get more respect and still try to find a way to get 2 teams in. But this is merging both interests that you had really in 4-4-2-2 and 5+11 for the Big 12 and finding a way to make it work better than what it was looking like. So I'm just saying, chestnut checkers kind of thing. It really looks like this has been pretty well executed by Brett Yormark in terms of his positioning on this and what the outcome at this moment in time is and looks like it is going to be on the playoff. You've got the 2 big bad bullies fighting. You've pitted their egos against each other instead of letting them with all their power and leverage just pull everything forward in one direction that's going the opposite way you want it to go. You have opened up more scheduling opportunities against these Power 2 leagues, which are important for your schools. Joey McGuire just said so behind a microphone at your own media days last week. And you have given yourself a best of both worlds playoff scenario with things continuing the way that they are. I like this. I like this as a Big 12 fan. If you're an ACC fan, you should like this. Anybody outside of the Big 10 or SEC should like this. And if you're the SEC, you're probably mostly fine. I know they're a little disgruntled with how this past year went, and truly that will tell the tale of how long we'll stay at 12. Is what happens with the at-large process this year. If the SEC seems satisfied by whatever changes they're trying to make, then maybe they would give in and just say, okay, fine, and make the change the Big Ten wants to see, and everybody will move forward. But if not, I mean, the SEC is going to continue to sit there and say, yeah, I don't know about this. We don't want to go to 9 conference games because look at how we're being treated in the at-large selection process. So that could continue to kick the can down the road. We shall see. Big Ten seems particularly upset about where things are at right now, but genuinely, I like some folks in the Big Ten. I like some Big Ten fans, but I care 0% about them being upset right now. 0%. 0.0%.